Apologize to me for being born into this world. Shit. Okay, so it's very, very apparent after the end of this chapter, Escanor, the hype, it's real. Nakaba-sensei did not troll us. Like that, well, Nakaba-sensei actually did troll us. Let's be real here. The first chapter trolled us. The half of this second chapter trolled us. The ending conclusion... Like, seriously. That line alone, just, come on, let's be real here. That line alone is just kick fucking ass. Like, you have it to where this big, buff-ass vampire's just, he's kicking ass, like, he's strong. I mean, this dude is just amazingly strong in this chapter, and then all of a sudden, you see Escanor, and he's like, apologize to me for being born into this world. He's all freaking buffed up and all, I'm like, yo. Okay, so I saw the spoiler pic of Escanor a couple of days ago because I just could not wait. I saw that this chapter's, you know, a little bit of leaks on this chapter came out, and so I decided to look at him and all that, and I saw Escanor. I was like, yo, Escanor's fucking buffed up and shit. So I was looking forward to seeing how Escanor's dialogue was in that situation. Come to find out, that picture was the cliffhanger, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, so, the last chapter left us on Escanor being super scrawny and weak. That was the last chapter. This chapter, Escanor super buffed up. Final page. So, do you see the, you know, the weirdness right there? The first chapter of this, you know, Edinburgh vampire story, whatever, the side story of Escanor, it had Escanor weak on the final page of the first chapter. Second chapter, we have Escanor extremely strong. So, what's going to be on the final page of chapter 3 of this? Like, yo. So, here's the thing, Escanor, straight up, I'm just gonna say, oh yes, he's definitely gonna become a very, very good character. Just from that line alone, you could already get a kind of grasp on what type of personality he has. Like, he's very prideful. Like, it's very obvious, he's the sin of pride, but to see that, just to see that line alone, you know, we should expect some amazing dialogue from him, seriously. When he says, apologize to me for being born in this world, like, he thinks the entire world is his, or something. Like, he thinks the entire world is his. So, here's the thing. The funny thing about that dialogue, what makes it really funny, is because, like, a page or two before that, like, 2 pages before that, you have it to where the vampire dude, he starts talking, he's like, oh, this is my domain and all that, it's my world right now, like, this little section is my world, my domain, because it's covered in darkness, you're a fool to be here, and all that kind of stuff. You know, the demon dude was trash-talking Escanor in his puny, scrawny mode, and he was like, this is my domain, my world, you know, the dude was doing. All of a sudden, after that, the final page, Escanor says, apologize to me for being born into my world. So, that's right there, just the pride of Escanor. Like, he was even saying, like, you better go full strength. Like, he was making fun of this vampire. He's like, you better go full strength. And I'm like, whoa. So, are we gonna get, like, a Vegeta-type character? Like, yo, okay, we know how Vegeta is. He's very prideful and stuff. Imagine if Escanor is kind of, like, similar in pride to Vegeta. Like, yo. Like, that would be, oh my god. Okay, so, this chapter of Edinburgh vampire side story, whatever, Edinburgh Castle, however you pronounce it, whatever you want to say, pretty much, this chapter, chapter 2 of this side story, woo! It was good. Like, there's a lot of ground to cover, like, so much ground to cover. This video is probably gonna be long, but anyways, here's the thing. I want to take a quick moment to mention a theory that Chibi brought up and mentioned, and I don't take credit for this theory at all. Just saying it right now. I don't take credit for it. I'm just, you know, letting you all know what Chibi said, and just letting you know about the theory. So, I've seen quite a few Chibits recently have some amazing theories. Like, oh my god, the theories some of you have on Escanor to Galther to Merlin. I mean, there's just so many amazing theories I've seen recently, and I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of intelligence when it comes to some of these theories. Like, oh my god. And I had to say, all you Chibits that have pitched in and tried to think of theories about what is probably going to happen, I just want to say, continue staying awesome, continue being badass, because those comments and those theory crafting, oh my god, like, just straight up awesome. Because all these different theories you all have brought up, I could probably make a good 20-something minute video on, or even longer than that. and just discuss these theories, you know, all of your Chibi's theories that you mentioned about what's possibly going to happen. And I might do that. I do want to make a discussion video very soon on Taizai, but let's move off of that because I'm getting a little bit off topic from the chapter. So, the thing is, this chapter, getting back onto the theory I want to talk about, Escanor. I saw a Chibi mention a theory about Escanor, and the theory supposedly was something to do with Bon. If we remember when Bon went into the Cernos, you remember the Cernos horn in the bottom of the castle, and he went to go talk to the Goddess Clan, supposedly, you know, all those theories I mentioned before, supposedly talking to the Goddess Clan. Well, before Bon enters that stairwell and starts walking down, you will see when Bon puts his hand to open the door is a lion. Now, let's take a moment, okay? Who has the symbol of the lion in this series? The Sin of Pride. The lion. The lion's Sin of Pride. Escanor. Very strange. You want to know what's even more strange about that? In the recent episode of the anime, you noticed in that scene, they cut out a lot of that Cerno scene when, you know, Bon was walking through the hallway and he took out the dude's teeth in the anime. And if you look closely in the anime, the main thing they wanted you to pay attention to in the recent episode of Taizai was Bon putting his hand on that doorknob that was a lion. Strange. Very, very strange. And Chibi mentioned that maybe, just maybe, they're hinting that Escanor has some form of connection with the Goddess Clan and he might be some form of demigod. Because, you know, he strengthens in the day. Because it's very apparent now after this chapter, Escanor gets stronger in the day. The closer it gets to daylight, he gets stronger. I thought he was going to be some form of reverse Lycan or something. That's what I thought it was going to be. But we kind of find out he's just getting very buffed up, stronger. Like, his clothes were bagging on him in the last chapter. And we kind of find out, like, his muscles beefed up so much, it made his clothes fit properly on him. So, like, holy hell. And it makes you wonder, like, what is Escanor? And I've seen some mythology. I've read some mythology on Escanor and stuff. I need to go back and actually reassess everything, look at all the myths and stuff on Escanor. But from what I've heard, he might be a demigod. So, really cool. Really, really cool. I mean, I just wonder. I'll have to do more research on Escanor later today. But that's a, you know, a theory Chibi brought up, that he might be a demigod because the lion symbol connecting to the Cernos, you know, horn and all that Bon went into. You know, he's the lion's Sin of Pride. It's the daytime. I mean, just the way he is, the way his, you know, handle is. Like, if you look at Escanor's, like, axe, his giant-ass Sacred Treasure axe, the axe handle, this is another theory Chibi brought up, just amazing theories. You'll see at the handle of the axe, the Sacred Treasure, it has some form of wings and stuff that looks like a Goddess Clan symbol. And so, it's kind of interesting if you think about it, that maybe, you know, he is connected with the Goddess Clan. So, let's move past that point. One thing I want to say, Escanor, extremely strong. Like, oh my god, like, he's strong. Like, it's like Meliodas was dragging that axe, okay? He was dragging that axe in this chapter. You see, like, the ground moving and just breaking as Meliodas was dragging it. But Escanor's grabbing this thing with one freaking hand. Yo. Just, it's insane. It's really insane. So, getting into some really important things in this chapter that really play a major role way down the road in current events that are going on. There's two major points in this chapter that answer some questions. For one thing, you have to where Bon in this chapter, he's getting blood sucked out of him. He is getting his blood just absorbed. Like, you have this vampire dude putting pipes inside a Bon and just drinking his blood, gallons upon gallons of blood. And from the exposition of the vampire, we come to find out that Bon's blood regenerates. Now, let's look at this real quick, okay? If you have yet to read the recent chapter Taizai, do not watch this video. I just want to say, I want to spoil some events from the recent chapter Taizai, so just going to pre-warn you all right now if you're walking into this video and expecting no spoilers for the recent chapter. Now, in the recent chapter of Taizai, if we look at the one scene where Bon, you know, slits his wrist and he's, you know, like, giving his blood to the tree, the fairy tree, we were all wondering, like, yesterday, like, okay, so is Bon going to die? Like, is he giving up his own life, his, you know, fountain of youth? Because, I mean, he drunk the fountain of youth, and his blood can kind of be considered the fountain of youth, and so will that eventually run out? That's what we were all thinking, because Bon was giving nutrients to the world tree. And we come to find out in the chapter, this side chapter, that Bon's blood continues to replenish over and over. So we can assume that he won't run out of blood at all when he nourishes the world tree. So we don't know. We don't know. So that kind of answers that question right there. So you gotta love Nakaba-sensei. Just answer that question really quick. Now, moving on to the other point I want to talk about is, Zeldris. Now, I think that's how you say it, Zeldris, or whatever. It's been a while since I've seen, the little black-haired Meliodas lookalikes, name. I know Estarossa, and then I think it's Zeldris in, the actual official chapters. But for some reason, in this translation, where I read it, the name of Zeldris was like Zeldris, or whatever. It didn't have the O. I know there was an O in Zeldris, but there was no O in it. So the translation's slightly different compared to how it normally is. So I don't know which one's the proper translation, so don't kill me if I got one of them wrong. But point of it is, though, okay, we find out some really questionable things in this chapter. So apparently, these vampires that have been released, like these two female vampires we get to see that fights Meliodas kind of in this chapter, they know Meliodas. Like, one of them mistaken Meliodas for someone else, and the other one knows who Meliodas is. Like, one thinks, oh, you're the person that betrayed us and broke the treaty 3,000 years ago and all that, went against us, and, I'll never forget that face. And then, she cuts Meliodas' helmet in half, and she's like, yeah, I'll never forget that face. And Meliodas in the chapter, he was acting like, well, who are you talking about? You sure you don't have me mistaken for someone else? He was acting like he had no idea who they were talking about, and eventually one thing leads to another, where to the other vampire helper kills her other, friend. It was like, oh, I know for a fact you're not the person. You're not Zeldris. So, am I the only one before she said Zeldris? Did anyone else think that she was probably talking about Estarossa? Like, I could have sworn that, that vampire girl was talking about Estarossa, because Estarossa looks very, 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 very similar to Meliodas. Like, it's just so similar. Besides, their age difference and height and stuff, they look very similar. So I thought, maybe she was talking about Estarossa. Come to find out, it's Zeldris. I mean, how do you mistake blonde hair for black hair? Like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, how do you do that shit? I mean, maybe he had a different type of hair color back in the day. I mean, hey, maybe he changed his hair color because he didn't want to be like a twin to Meliodas. I mean, hey, for all we know, Zeldris could be a twin to Meliodas, but he changed his hair because he doesn't want to look exactly like Meliodas. That's a possibility, because it's already obvious that Estarossa, Zeldris, and Meliodas are brothers. It's so freaking obvious. It really is, because all these connections building up and all that. It's already obvious the connection deepens even more because of them looking similar and how the vampire brings them up. But the main thing you want to pull out of this is the dialogue from what the vampire says. Why did you break the treaty 3,000 years ago? Why did you break the treaty 3,000 years ago? Okay, so I'm assuming, since she thinks she's talking about Zeldris. Zeldris is the black-haired, looking Meliodas. I'm assuming she's talking about how the demons attacked everybody. That's what I'm assuming. And then they sealed the vampires. Why? Okay, so let me assess this situation properly. From what I understood from the female vampire is that someone that looked like Meliodas, betrayed and broke the treaty 3,000 years ago, and then sealed the vampires 3,000 years ago. Why would the demon clan seal the vampires? Like, why? Why? That's the question I wonder right now. Like, why would the demon clan seal, or even Zeldris seal the vampire clan? Because when we hear of sealing, when we hear of sealing, we hear of the demon seal. How demons have been sealed away. And I instantly assume how, the different giant clan, the fairy clan, humans, and, the goddess, all that, they work together to seal the demon clan. And I'm assuming that it would have been the goddess clan that would have sealed the vampire clan. So why? Why did the demon clan, supposedly, if we don't have this information, or if this information's not screwy, why would the demon clan, seal the vampire clan? Anyways, let's move past that, because there's not much more information I can go on. I could only bring up more mysteries. Now, there's some funny things in this chapter. For one, two main points that's really funny with this chapter. One, Bond. Actually, that's, I guess, kind of the similar thing. Bond's the main 2 points that are funny. The one point with Bond is when we finally get to see what he does to King and Diane in the past. Like, we've heard, rumors about this. We've seen, them talk about it in chapter 50-something. We saw the Sins talking about this with Galther, like how Galther revealed, oh yeah, you're the one that was getting extremely drunk and all that, and you let Diane and King fight with their powers weak, and you're just sitting there laughing your ass off, and you did 10,000 push-ups. I mean, I remember that. That was extremely funny. I remember laughing my ass off when Diane just crushed Bond like it was nothing. And to see in this chapter firsthand what Bond did, what a prick. Like, what a freaking prick. Like, Bond, man. Like, I fucking love you, dude. Like, dude, oh, this is why he's best boy, man. Like, he just straight up steals Diane M. King's power. Like, he's just sitting up there. He's just sitting up, like, freaking way up above. He just steals her power. And he's sitting there laughing his ass off, and he's just drinking and shit. And he's like, I did it. Oh, my God. And what's even funnier is he was just sitting there laughing. I'm like, yo, Bond is just sitting there laughing his ass off, drunk, while looking at them struggling down there. And what's even funnier after that, we find out the meaning behind the 10,000 push-ups. Like, that was unexpected. We come to find out, since, he got all this strength and all that, he could do a lot of things, because he stole their strength. He was trying to fight Merlin. He's like, hey, Merlin, let's have a fight. We never fought before. And then Merlin's like, okay, I'll fight you, but first things first, do 10,000 push-ups. And then freaking King starts, and then Bond just starts doing 10,000 push-ups. He's like, yeah. It's, like, funny. It's so funny, because just see Bond do that shit, it's like, it's great. It's just too good. And, oh yes, one thing I do want to point out. Merlin grabbed the eyeball of the vampire that Bond killed. She grabbed the vampire's eye and put it in a jar. I wonder what role that's gonna play, because Nakaba-sensei wouldn't show that if it's not important. I know for a fact that wouldn't be shown if it's not important for something later on. I want to assume, since the vampire drunk Bond's blood, maybe she's going to experiment with the vampire, because, wait a minute, that eye. Wait a minute. That's very strange. If you look at the eye closely, it looks like similar to Balor's eye. I just realized that. But I mean, Balor's eye, the mythology on it. Nakaba-sensei stays true to mythology, so I highly doubt it's the same eye, but very strange. Anyways, getting back on topic, I'm willing to bet the reason why Merlin grabbed that eye is probably because Bond, and how he drank the Fountain of Youth, most likely she's going to look at the traits inside the vampire, see if, Bond's immortality's there, I'm assuming. Because what's really strange if you think about it, actually, here's the strange thing. I think the eye was speaking. I think it was speaking. Like, I could be wrong, don't kill me. I think the eye was speaking when Merlin grabbed the eye and put it in a jar. And from what we find out at the beginning of this chapter, is that vampires, if you decapitate them, destroy their hearts, or, like, just dismantle their body completely, then they will die. That's what we find out from, like, a vampire's exposition at the beginning of the chapter. And if I'm correct, and if that vampire boy that, is fighting Bond is still alive, like, he's still alive, like, I think he was talking as an eye. I think he was. Like, I really think he was. It's hurting me right now, because I don't know. I don't know if I'm making a baseless theory or not. I really don't. It's gonna kill me. You guys will let me know anyways. It doesn't matter. But let me just say my theory regardless, even if I'm wrong and it's a baseless theory because, he didn't speak. The eyeball, if it was speaking, that would mean that Bond's immortality can go to others. Okay? End of theory right there. So, I think that's pretty much it when it came to this volume. Or, volume, what the fuck. When it came to this chapter of Taizai. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.